All right, take two. Good morning, Vietnam. However you're watching, wherever you're watching, however you're listening, wherever you're listening. It's the Bet Online Salute to Troy podcast. And yeah, we just had a scene here. We thought we were live, and we weren't live. Yeah, there was a lot of technical difficulties on my side. We got the madman with us today. Ryan is out yogging. I think it's with a soft J. They call it yogging.
Yeah, yogging. He's out there yogging, you know.
It's a new thing. We got the madman with us live from the Emerald City. I bet you didn't think I knew that, huh? The Emerald City.
Very impressive, Coach. Very impressive.
Seattle, Washington. Madman, how are you doing?
Doing well, Coach. Great to see you here in Seattle. I was shame that had missed you guys last week. Was in DC, and as you so eloquently put it last week, I had bathroom troubles. You know, the airplane that I was on, there was a bathroom malfunction. Had to go back to the gate, whole deal. So couldn't make our show last week. So unfortunate about that, but excited to get into it with you, Coach. Excited to kind of give my take on everything that's been going on the last week and discussing how we move forward. But always a pleasure to see you, my friend. And I'm certain that our next show, all three bearded bandits will be back together after this sort of 10-day hiatus.
You're definitely not the bearded bandit right now. You're clean shaven. You got on the button-up shirt. You're dressed to impress. That's a men's.
Coach, by the end of this show, I'm gonna have a stronger stubble than you. You know, that's what happens.
That looks custom. That doesn't even look like off the rack. I'll still go off the rack at Man's Warehouse. Joseph Abboud. You can't go wrong with that one. And we got a guest host.
Oh, the greatest guest host of all.
Yep. There you go. So at least so you've been working. I've been accused of coping, believe it or not. People accuse me of coping. I'm a person that copes. I didn't know that. I didn't know my personality. You know what's funny? Some of the things, like I read the comments and I read them to my wife, and she goes, "They don't know you at all." Like she goes, "They don't know you at all." Like when they try to like describe my personality, like, "Oh, you're coping." She's like, "Huh." And one time somebody was like, "I was insecure," and she was like, "You're the last insecure person I've ever met in my life."
Absolutely. But it's always fun to get the engagement, Coach. You know,
yeah,
that's what it's
I love
about.
I love it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little comment reader. I go straight to the comments to see what people have to say. I'm not. I am Kevin Durant all the way. I just don't have a burner account.
Ooh, Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant without the thin skin. That's the situation. Huh?
Yeah, definitely. I love it. I love the interaction for all our fans. We love you guys. That's why we decided to go live in the off season because of all your support and moving forward. So let's catch up. Let's get your take. Apparently, I have to talk you off the bridge too because you're a little worried about these decommitments. So go ahead. I'll let you have the floor first, and we'll.
I'm not worried, Coach. At all. But it is a problem. I don't think we can brush this under the rug as saying, "Oh, everything is fine. It's not an issue. It's 18-year-old kids deciding to go closer to home." That's all fine and good, and that's all correct. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this is a structural problem for USC moving forward, and one that needs to be corrected. And I say that for a few reasons. One is this is a big deal, and Terry and Gibson leaving is a big deal because you know why, Coach? It was a big deal when we got them. We had a great reaction when we got them. So it can't be a big deal when we get them and not a big deal when we lose them. So by definition, it's a big deal. And guess what? The recruiting agencies in 2025 have now gone from USC at number 3 recruiting class to the number 11 recruiting class just off the backs of 2 players. Number one. Number two, I think the issue is that this can't always just be about, hey, player A, player B, Gibson, Terry, and all the other players down the line. Because they don't want to play at USC, there's something wrong with them, or they don't want to compete, or they're not ready for the bright lights of Los Angeles. It takes 2 to tango. That may very well be the case, but what is the problem on the USC side? Is there a problem with NIL? Is there a problem with level of commitment and effort to retain these recruits with the same rigor, the same intensity, the same strategy that you see in the South that you see in the Midwest. That's number 2. Number 3, I think it's really important that we hold Lincoln Riley, DeAnton Lynn, and Jen Cohen accountable. Lincoln Riley, let's not forget, is making $10 million a year, coach. And Lincoln Riley, let's not forget, is said this is the new mecca of college football, coach. DeAnton Lynn now has doubled his salary in the last 6 months at $2 million a year, and Jen Cohen's making over $1 million a year as an athletic director. So at the end of the day, those are big dollars. And in the real world, if you get paid a significant amount, you are expected to produce serious results and serious results quickly. So if we don't hold them to the fire, we don't hold them to a higher standard, we don't press the pressure envelope, that's the wrong message. USC fans need to hold all 3 of those individuals accountable because they are getting paid so much that's what's warranted. And then I think number 4, coach, moving forward, I think this is about USC needing to take a page out of Georgia's book, where they're basically saying no top recruit out of the state of Georgia is going to leave unless we say so. Or back in the 80s, when Miami walled off the state of Miami and said no top recruit is leaving Miami unless we say so. Or the way it was in the Pete days when USC really owned Southern California. USC has to go back to building that Trojan wall around Southern California and basically saying we are going to get every top recruit in that region and then build a national pipeline around that. But to just go purely national and leave the door open in Southern California, I think is a mistake. It lacks strategic clarity. It lacks identity. And it allows everyone else to come into your backyard and take top recruits when the flip, the vice versa, is not true. Where look at the way Georgia has stepped up to the plate here. Gibson and Terry are going to be at Georgia. Gibson's already committed. Terry, we know that's going to follow here. They're kind of a package deal. And so that's really the issues here for me, coach. This is a big deal. We have to treat it as such. Because if we're not treating it as a big deal, then guess what? This isn't a serious program. Because serious programs think losing 2 5-stars over the period of 12 hours is a big deal. But if we don't think it's a big deal, then guess what? USC is not a serious program moving forward.
So I'm going to try to remember everything you said. So I'm going to go from the top. So the top, you said it being about a big deal. And I understand that you're saying it is a big deal. And it is a big deal. We lost a recruit off the board, but the world doesn't stop.
No, the world doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. Coach, remember, think of your reaction when we got these 2 guys.
Right.
Think of Ryan's reaction when we got these 2 guys.
And
think of my reaction when we got these 2 guys. We can't be going crazy and saying, oh, hey, remember what you said, ain't no fun when the rabbits got the gun, right? I mean, and you said, look, now that we're taking these guys from the SEC, this is a big deal. This is a huge deal. Now, when we lose these guys, all of a sudden it's not a big deal. That sounds like a jilted girlfriend. That sounds like a jilted boyfriend. That sounds like, hey, let's sit around the bed and eat ice cream and talk about how we got dumped. That's not fair, right? There's an inconsistency there. If it's a big deal when we get them, it's a big deal when we lose them.
Well, I understand. And it was a big deal because they were 5-star recruits and we're used to not picking up 5-star recruits, right? So if these were our only 2 5-star recruits, right, that we're bringing in, we already got a 5-star recruit commit at the same position as Gibbs, right? The kid from Oaks Christian. You have, and I understand, but I'm looking at it from this perspective.
He's not 5-star, coach. You're talking about Gibson?
Yeah, he's a 5-star kid.
Oaks, the Oaks Christian kid?
I believe so. He's a top recruit. He's one of the top recruits in California.
I don't know if he's okay. We can pick that up later,
But you get what I'm saying? Like we have a bunch of 4-star and 5-star recruits that are coming in, and I think it was a little bit excitement because they were the first 2, right? And they were the first 2 out the gate, and they were from Georgia. And right, I'm gonna always talk bad about the SEC and us stealing from the SEC, but then they decided to go back home. The reason why I say, and this is what I was accused of culping for. The reason why I say, and this is only my logic, right? And everything I say is opinion, and this is my opinion. Every time there was when that happened, there was a good defensive line class coming in, and all of a sudden he decommitted. And I'm like, that just seems kind of strange to me. And then the other guy decommits, and there's a 5-star defensive tackle, and there's a 4-star defensive tackle coming in. We're recruiting talent, and we can't stop the train because we lost 2 guys. And that's just how it was taught. All right, we lost them. We got to keep moving. I'm just thinking of the recruiting mindset. Now, if we get to December and we have nobody, now we have to worry a little bit. But right now, it's like we got to keep going. We got to keep going on visits. We have to keep moving forward and understand, like, all right, we lost those guys. Probably in that room, you probably are like, damn it, we lost those guys. We got to, but at the end of the day, we got to keep moving. So I'm in the mindset of we bringing in a bunch of guys. We're bringing in a bunch of guys who are equally as good, right? They have the same amount of stars. They're considered top recruits, and we're bringing them in, and that just keeps on replacement. And just like when we're talking, like, I'm not too concerned of losing those guys. And right, I get that you said that it's double-sided. And my thing, what up, Jay? My thing is Hayden Lowe was a 4-star. Excuse me, he's a 4-star.
Lowe's a 4, right?
4 or 5. They're still just as good. They're the top recruits. But my thing is that if we stop and we soak on this, how many opportunities are we missing?
No,
right?
Coach, I agree with you, but I think those are 2 separate issues, right? To say it's not a big deal, and to say one is talking about whether this is a big deal or not. The other one is saying, are we going to stop or not? I'm not saying we got to stop. I'm totally in agreement with you. We got to keep going. You dust yourself off. You got to move forward. But that doesn't take away from that this isn't a big deal. And I think last week, you and Ryan were a little too sort of, too cool and too cool for school, a little too nonchalant, saying, "Oh, this is not a big deal. It's fine." This is a big deal. I mean, if 2 guys can drop you 8 spots in your recruiting ranking, it's a big deal. Now, is the sky falling down? Is there no time to kind of turn it around or get back to that positive trajectory? Absolutely not. So in that regard, I agree with you. It's not all doom and gloom. And there's plenty of opportunity to fix this, but we have to sort of acknowledge that this was a big loss, and we have to hold Lincoln, DeAnton, and Jen Cohen accountable. Look, I mean, Lincoln's getting paid $10 million a year. He's a big boy, okay, and he's got he's calling this the Mecca of college football. You got to be held to the Mecca standards of college football, and at the end of the day, whether Lincoln and DeAnton and Eric Henderson did their job, and whether the NIL money is still yet to kind of come through, and Jen couldn't sort of close the deal on that and not really sort of building the infrastructure as quickly as we needed to, that's fine. But at the end of the day, Jen Cohen's making $1.5 million and Lincoln's making 10. So at the end of the day, Lincoln still controls this whole situation. And if he wants things to be done faster, he needs to sort of impose his will in that way. So that really is what, because if we just say, oh, everything is fine and Lincoln is good and all of that, then guess what? You're not holding a $10 million a year coach accountable. You're just Texas A&M at that point. You're just like, oh, we're just so happy to have Jimbo here when he was there. And, we don't really care what the results are. You have to be sort of results oriented.
So I understand where you're coming from, but it's a big deal in the terms of, it's a big deal in the moment. And I consider it as a flat tire, right? You're driving along, all of a sudden you get a flat tire. You're like, oh man, like I got a flat tire. But at the end of the day, I got to pull over, and you do your two options, right? You either put the spare on yourself or you call AAA, right? So if once you get the tire change, you got to keep it rolling, right? You get back in your car and you go get the tire fixed. Are they fixing it? I believe so, because of the guys that they're bringing in, right? And I just like I don't know how to say it, but like I just play it cool because we have to keep moving, right? We're gonna lose.
Yeah, no, I'm not, but I think those are 2 separate things, Coach.
We're
keeping it moving, but that doesn't, we can't be USC when it's the good times. Okay, when everything is rolling, it's like we're USC, we're back. Everybody wants to know, when's USC back? USC hasn't had a USC season since 2008, since the Sanchez year with that great defense. USC has not been USC since 2008. When is USC going to be back? That's the question everybody wants to know. And the answer to that question is, when we wall off Southern California like we used to, and we're able to sort of pick strategically from the rest of the country. Until that happens, USC is not back. And we have to sort of acknowledge that. We can't just sugarcoat everything all the time, right? And I'm not saying we're not going to get there, but we have to acknowledge right now, this was a big loss. I mean, and the other thing is, it's what it's really putting a lens on is how important NIL is potentially, right? I mean, if these are two Georgia kids, they want to play at Georgia, they want to play home, they fell in love with sort of kind of the Hollywood visit and whatnot, kind of cooler heads prevailed. I think some dollars prevailed, and they're now at Georgia. So what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of what USC needs to do differently to go recruit in the South? Because if USC goes 0 for the South, sort of year over year, this is not going, there is no path to a national championship if you go 0 for the South, right, Fred? I think we can agree about that.
I definitely agree with you on that. We can't live.
We have to do something. We have to fix it. So now, you either say, well, they're just kids from Georgia. They just want to go play at home. Okay, fine. That's one school of thought. Or was there something that USC was not able to close? Okay, was it monetarily? Was it schematically? Was it in terms of level of attention to these players after they verbally committed? You have to sort of look at yourself in the mirror and say, right now, what we're doing isn't good enough. So how do we get better and move forward? But this is a big deal, Coach. There's no question about it. Look, if two guys can turn a number 3 recruiting class into a number 11 recruiting class, they're needle movers. And what does this mean now for Juju Lewis? I mean, I think that's the big question moving forward. He, by all indications, Coach, you and I know this, he was sort of the super node, right? He was kind of the LeBron of this recruiting class. It's like, I'm here, you come join me. I'm here, Isaiah's here, Justice is here, come and join us. Now 2 of the 3 guys are gone. Where does that leave Juju Lewis? Is he going to be even more committed to recruit more guys because he's got to take a greater responsibility and he kind of sees that? Or B, does it make him a little trigger itchy, if you will? Does it make him a little knock knees? So that's going to be the big question moving forward. And look, at the end of the day here, Coach, this ultimately falls on Lincoln. We gave him a pass 2 years ago. It's the defense. Okay, defense is fixed. Now, Grinch is gone. DeAnton is here. So you can't blame the defense. NIL was a problem 2 years ago. That's not the case now. You got House of Victory. Everyone's rallying around it. So we're starting to run out of excuses as to why we're not closing. At the end of the day, USC is meant to be a top 5 program in college football. And so if that's not happening, is it the coach? Is it the money? Has the game passed this program by? I mean, you got to ask the hard questions.
Well, if that's the case, then that's a mistake on us, right? Because any coach could tell you, unless it's truly a hometown kid, and any kid that commits that early, you're still kind of worried about them. And I said this on shows before. If your kid commits, you don't let them go on other visits, because at the end of the day, they're 18, and it's what have you done for me lately? And if the last visit you go on, you're always going to love the school. Every school you go to, you're going to love the school. When I went to Fresno State on the visit, I was ready to commit to Fresno State because all the fun I had, right? Same thing with every school. Oh, I'm ready to come here. But you have to sit down and really think about it. And you let him go to Georgia on a visit, and he's like, dang, it's right here from home. We drove up here. Like, they could come see me play. There's some factors, I don't care what you say, there's some factors that money can't beat.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, and
by the way, Coach, it's the team of the 2020s. Let's not forget that.
Right.
This is a team that's won back-to-back national championships, probably was a top 4 team last year, lost to Bama, and then won emphatically against the depleted Florida State team. All indications they're going to be back in the top 3, top 4, top 5, kind of vying for another national championship. So the winning matters too. Close to home, you're on a winner, you're getting the NIL. That's hard to beat, right? And so that's kind of what I'm saying. Where is USC on that 3-point scale right now? Okay, you're not close to home, so you got to be sure that with guys in the South, with the Gibsons and the Terrys and the others, you got to be sure they got to be convinced that you're going to win, and they got to be convinced that you're NIL. And are we absolutely positive that these recruits are convinced of winning. LV Live brings up a great point here. He says, look, there's not a ton of faith in Lincoln Riley's ability to coach a defense because of Grinch. I think DeAnton fixes that to a certain extent, but there's some questions. DeAnton had really good players at UCLA last year. Was it those players? Was it him? There's a question there. Eric Henderson, unbelievable coach. He had Aaron Donald. Was it Eric Henderson? Was it Aaron Donald? It's a question. And so I think there's still some questions about whether or not Lincoln, even with this staff, can coach a great defense. And then number two, we keep hearing the NIL is close. It's top 10, top 15. But top 10, top 15 isn't Georgia, because Georgia's NIL is probably top 3, top 4, top 5. So again, there's still room to grow here, Coach, and we got to get there because
everybody's growing on NIL in the SEC because I said everybody's growing on the NIL in the SEC. They had NIL before it was legal, right? They were already ahead of the game, right? Yeah. So I mean that's no excuse, but I'm trying to explain this to you.
But it's also no excuse, right, Coach? I mean. You remember the Best Damn Sports Show? Back in the day.
Yeah.
Rodney was on there. Rodney Peete, great USC quarterback. He'd joke all the time. He's like, "Man, I took a pay cut when I went to the NFL." So it's kind of like, we can talk about the SEC also. It's not like our hands are completely clean either. We played that game. We may not have played it as well or as frequent. So
if that's the case, Pete owed me some money. That's all I'm saying. If that's the case, Pete owed me some money, so I need some back pay. But at the end of the day, right? We're so far away from. Maybe because I'm looking at it like this. When Adrian Peterson was on campus at USC, he decided to go to Oklahoma. It wasn't a big deal, right? When SC lost Deshaun Jackson, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
When SC lost Donovan Warren, who was a 5-star corner out of Long Beach Poly, it wasn't a big deal. When SC lost my brother, who was a top recruit and went to Oregon, it wasn't a big deal. Dre Casey, who's better than Jarrell Casey, didn't go because he got into some trouble. It wasn't a big deal. I get to the media and to, as Kansas say, the fair weather fan, they're seeing all the commitments and decommitments now. Committing and decommitting is a normal thing. It's a normal process. And to me, I get it. We need to move forward. And I would be worried if there weren't better players coming, but there's just as equal players coming. And I'm on the fact of, just like I am with the NFL draft, all 32 guys who got drafted in the first round, there's a 50% chance they'll be good. There's a 50% chance they'll be bad. We could look at this in 2 years, and Gibbs and what's the other guy's name? Justice Terry could be in the portal and not have any stats and not have anything done. I get where people are coming from. Like, we should be able to keep those guys, and we should be able to do this. I will tell you this, to answer your question, once a guy commits, the recruiting kind of lags a little bit because you're like, all right, we got him. We just need it's more of check in on him compared to we need to get this guy. I'm going to give him a little bit more attention, right? To answer your Juju question, well, Julian Lewis, because there's only one Juju at SC.
She threw out the first pitch at the Dodger game the other night.
Yeah, and she had finger surgery, but she was dribbling with one hand the other day. She's pretty good. Caitlin, watch out. But anyway, Julian Lewis at the Elite 11 camp last week, I mean, all I could do is take his word. He was like, I'm committed to USC. Lincoln Riley is the reason why I'm going to SC. What he does with quarterbacks and what he developed, I have no plans on changing. I'm going to SC. I'm pretty sure he got those money offers already. The thing that scares me about NIL, right?
So, Coach, before you jump in there, let me sort of kind of address 2 points of what you said, because a lot of great things of what you said there. Number one, I was there with you. I was certainly not on the team, so removed, but as a student, I was there. Deshaun not going to USC was a big deal, but it was a big deal for a different reason. It was like, how the hell could he not go to USC? He was like the one guy that didn't go to USC kind of during that whole period. So it was sort of a big deal in its inverse, and people were kind of scratching their heads as to why it was Cal of all places. But so that was kind of the historical piece. The second thing here, Fred, here's why it's a big deal again. What's the knock on Lincoln Riley? He can't win the big game because he doesn't care enough about defense, right? Okay, 4 years at OU, Bob Stoops kind of gift wrapped him 4 years of really great rosters, got to the playoff for 3 years, hasn't won a playoff game, missed the playoff the 4th year, and now he's here at USC. Whole situation with the defense and Grinch kind of wasted a Caleb Williams virtuoso season in 2022 because of the defense, and then obviously the follow-up in 23. So that's number one. There's already a question of his ability to be a championship coach because of the defensive side of the ball. Number two, where is USC's biggest area of need to get from a good, very good, really good team to truly elite? It's in the trenches, primarily on that defensive line. Who did we just lose? We just lost 2 5-star guys on the defensive line. Okay. Now, when you talk about Julian Lewis, that's a whole different matter also, because he's a quarterback. Lincoln has been able to get Hurts, and he's been able to get Mayfield, and he's been able to get Murray, and he's been able to get Caleb, and he's been able to get, up until now, Julian Lewis. So no one is doubting his ability to be the quarterback whisperer that we all know that he is. But guess what? Being the quarterback whisperer has still not enabled him to win a big game in his career. So being able to have Julian Lewis versus losing a Gibson and a Terry, that's why Gibson and Terry was so significant. It flipped the narrative completely that Lincoln Riley is really serious about defense. B, it flipped the narrative completely that USC is a brand and has resources strong enough to go into Georgia's backyard, the team of the 2020s, and take some of their best players. And C, it showed that the hire of Eric Henderson is going to really matter long-term because of his relatability to players and the success that he had with one Aaron Donald. And now in one fell swoop with these two guys leaving, you're starting to question all 3 of those points again. So
I don't think you should.
Not that the sky is falling, but you're questioning.
I don't think you should, though. I don't. First, before we go, though, before Will it thrill, you're a hater. I just realized we put that on there. Will's a hater. Will's a hater. Anyway, I'll take it off of this. They're still recruiting heavy on defense, right? And I get we lost 2 good players, but I don't think you should start questioning like, is the defense still going to be good? And all those questions you have. I don't think you should, because he's taking all the right steps to make his defense better. He's hired.
What are all the steps, Coach?
They're bringing in
steps. We're getting these 2 guys.
I understand that, but they're also bringing in. They had a 5-star defensive guy in this past weekend.
They don't have a 5-star edge rusher. They don't have a 5-star interior lineman. Now, again, like we talked about last week, you and Ryan talked about, it's not all about the stars. I get that. You can build with 3 stars and 4 stars and whatnot, and you develop them the right way. But so much of the momentum, okay, we know this, Coach. Look, 24 is going to be what it's going to be. We think it's going to be an improvement over 23, like our viewers have very eloquently stated, and I think we're in total agreement. But look at where these resources and all of this is lining up. It's lining up for 25. 25 is kind of the make it or break it year for Lincoln, right? If they go 9-3 this year, okay, they go 9-3. At least it's better than 8-5. But then it's kind of like, where's the guy that was promising the playoffs and the national championships? That guy has to show up in 2025, because guess what? If you cannot turn a program around in 4 years to be national championship quality in that contention, it's really one of only 2 things in modern college football. Either A, you're not an elite coach, or B, you're not an elite program, or both. So we've all sort of had an eye towards 25 as that's kind of the year where this thing really turns around for Lincoln. All of these are class of 25. Now, 2/3 of the 5 stars go away. It's a significant blow to the momentum. Can it come back? Absolutely. But it's still a significant blow to the momentum. And the reason that we question it, Coach, is because we have no prior successes to lean back on. When has Lincoln Riley coached a great defense in his entire career, whether it's OU or USC? It has not happened. When has Lincoln Riley won a big game, whether it was OU or USC? It has not happened. So naturally, you're going to question it because you don't have the success to lean on as credibility.
Well, I'm hoping that my man Deanton Lynn does well in 2024, but you can't hope in sports, right? I believe in the development, right? And I get it. And what I was going to say is we're getting to this thing to where commitments don't mean anything. And I think it's getting to the point to where is it really worth having Gibbs and Terry if they're going, and this is just hypothetical. I'm not saying this is true or false, but let's just say they really loved USC. They really love the coaching staff, right? It's just far away from home. They could get over that part. But the only reason why they're going there is because the NIL was bigger, right? That part scares me. That part scares me in recruiting in today's football. And the reason why they say that, and this is from a coaching's perspective, are you really there to make the team better? Are you really there for the team? Are you really there for the success of the program? Are you really there just to collect the check? And I understand that's where college football is going. And I 100% get that. But at the end of the day, if you don't create a team, if you don't develop guys, and you're just getting guys just because you had more money, you will never be successful. Right. And you could use examples like, well, it worked for the Yankees, but it only worked for the Yankees. It's not working for the Dodgers as of yet. And they've been throwing a boatload of money at players and trying to win a World Series, and they can't do it, right? We don't know how this thing is really working. So the fear of where we're going today in recruiting is guys that are chasing bags. What if these two were just guys that were chasing bags? Because
could very well be, Coach. They could very well have been chasing bags.
And that's the part I don't like. Like, if they are bag chasers, then they don't need to be on the team.
We can't just automatically sort of.
I know that's hypothetical. That's hypothetical.
That they were bag chasers.
You're right. You're right.
Like that's the problem right now that I'm having with the conversation, not just on this network, but kind of the collective USC conversation right now. That there's a tendency to say because we didn't get them or we didn't close them, there's something wrong with them. Okay. And hey, it might be the case. They were chasing the bag. They've got family obligations, all super credible, honorable reasons. But if you can't sort of turn the mirror and look at yourself as well and say, look, hey, is there a scenario here where maybe there's something wrong with us? That maybe we're not doing everything that we need to do to be successful given this new landscape. Look, with NIL and the portal, this is a brave new world. But are we truly setting ourselves up for success here? We have to look at ourselves in the mirror. And that's all I'm saying. We got to have those hard conversations. And the fans, the folks like us as analysts, Coach, are wonderful fans. We have to ask those hard questions because we have to put those people accountable because they're the ones making a shit ton of money. Pardon my language. So if you're not going to have them be accountable despite making 8 figures and 7 figures a year, then are we just sort of okay winning 8 or 9 games a year, kind of being a fringe top 12, top 14, top 15 team, having a lot of fun when we go to the Coliseum, engaging with a lot of fans in the offseason and sort of talking smack on Twitter, and that's good enough for the modern, USC football. Hey, that's a choice. I don't think that's good enough. I think USC, we've seen it, albeit now, Coach, next year is going to be 20 years. Hard to believe that next year is the 20th anniversary of the last time Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush donned the USC uniform. So we are talking about a generation removed now from the pinnacle of success. You only have a certain amount of shots to get this thing back before you sort of lose it forever. And all I'm trying to say is we have to ask the tough questions here and now so we ensure that there's an opportunity to get it back so USC can be what it was 20 years ago.
But I don't think, and I think that's the misconception. I don't think that we're in jeopardy of losing it forever. And this is why I say I don't think we're in jeopardy of losing it forever. Even when we're on probation, we're still competitive, right? Even when things weren't good, we were still the product wasn't great with Hilton, but we were still except as last year, we're still on the plus side. You compare us to Miami. Miami might be gone forever. Miami hasn't won anything, hasn't been anything since early 2000s. It's legit like 25 years, 20 years. They won in 2000. It's legit 24 years, and they haven't been anything since Larry Coker left. I think Miami's in a worse situation than we are.
And I'm not here to debate, Miami versus USC, coach. Obviously, we can say that. But here's what I will say is Miami, and we'll leave the Miami talk after that. Obviously, this is a USC show. But Miami was the dominant team of the 80s, right? And then they went on probation. Then they came back and got it back late 90s, early 2000s, and now it hasn't been the same. But if you take a zoom out look at USC football the last 45 years, Coach, you and I grew up in LA. What exactly was USC football in the 80s? What exactly was USC football in the 90s? Yeah, a couple Rose Bowls here and there, but no, they never threatened to win a national championship. It was only when the sixth choice of the program, Pete Carroll, showed up that we had this incredible 7-year period. And now it's been, again, mediocrity, much in the way the 80s and 90s were. Hey, a Rose Bowl here with Darnold. Hey, threatening for maybe a big bowl every 4 or 5 years. But nothing truly that you would say, look, USC never made the playoff when it was a 14 playoff. Never had a top 4 finish, right, Coach? So now you zoom out and you say since 1980 till 2024, that's 44 years. You're basically saying it was a mediocre program for 44 years, except for 7 years from 02 to 08. So, and the 7 years where it was rolling was the 6th choice of coach. So, if you zoom out and look at it that way, here's where it gets very interesting. Was Pete the rule or was Pete the exception? And that's the question we have to sort of operate with a level of urgency that Pete was the exception, not the rule. There's still a lot of USC fans that think it's the birthright for us to just be great all the time. The reality is you zoom out, it was a 7-year window over 44 years where Pete was rolling. It was kind of the exception. So it's with that level of urgency that we need to attack recruiting and say, look, this is everything USC can offer. History, lineage to the NFL, beautiful campus, LA, Hollywood, the Trojan family, but you got to lean in and you have to be able to close your recruiting. You got to either sell the school harder, you either have to sell LA harder, you need more money, but you're going to have to dial some of these things up. Whatever is happening right now is kind of working, but not completely working.
Check this out. Now that you say this, and I've had this conversation multiple times with multiple people, and just hear me out. The first thing I'm going to lead with is, do you think Oregon's doing better than us in recruiting?
Absolutely.
Oregon never wins national championships.
Yeah, but
hold on, just hear me out. So Oregon wins 10, 12 games a year. They go to their bowl game. Maybe they win or lose, right? Same thing with Texas. Same thing with Penn State. Same thing with a lot of big label programs. National championships are a rarity in college football. A good college football program, not even good. Elite college football. There's only one elite college football program a year, right? And you could go and look at all the records. There's only one elite college football program a year, and that's the national champion. A great college football program is a 10 to 12 win season. And that's what college football truly is, and that's what college football has been for the longest of time. Now, I understand that there are playoffs, and the playoffs had a little bit of different implications to it. But now that you say that, that's what made Joe Paterno great, right? Joe Paterno, and I had this conversation with somebody, Joe Paterno only has 3 national championships and over like 50 years of coaching. You get what I'm saying? Mac Brown only has 1. Pete Carroll is the exception. I think, and now that you say that, you made me look back and reflect, we're looking at this college football thing all wrong, and we're making this college football thing wrong. The goal is to win 10 to 12 games to at least achieve that mark. Now we need to strive and achieve eliteness. We haven't even got to the great part yet. And then we're trying to skip great and we're trying to go to elite, right? A great college football team is Penn State. They're consistent every year, 10 to 12 wins. Just because they don't go to the big dance, they get 10 to 12 wins. They don't have the recruiting problem. We need to get to great before we become elite, right? And I think we're skipping that. And as fans, and even as analysts, and I'm gonna take blame too, because I did that too. I immediately wanted to go to elite. We're a national championship team. The fact that I played on team with national championship caliber. I never had the ability to win one, but I played on teams with national championship caliber. But the goal has always been for USC to do what? Just win the Rose Bowl, right? National championship was a little bit extra. We need to get back to the goal before we can make the extra. And I think we need to get the fans back to that realization. And I'm happy you said that. And you mentioned that because when you think, I'm like, you're absolutely right. Like, we just need to win 10 to 12 before you win 10 to 12 years, 10 to 12 games a year, recruiting's not an issue. Right?
Yeah, you're out win, coach. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? I mean, and the cycles are so short now. I mean, think about this. The last time Leinart and Bush were USC players, these kids weren't even born. Right. Okay. The last time Darnold won the Rose Bowl, when Darnold won the Rose Bowl, these kids were in elementary school. When you start thinking about it in those terms, you start realizing, look, you have to be good. The memory only goes back 3-4 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because I know we love to sort of pound on Oregon, rightfully so, 0 national championships, the whole deal, coach. But look, even USC's 11 national championships, 9 of them were before you and I were born. Okay. Sure. So we have no emotional connection whatsoever to 9 of those 11 national championships. We love it. We went to USC. It's part of the lineage, it's part of the brand and all that. But true emotional connection, nada, none, 0, right? And so when you're sort of looking at it in this period of time, look, Saban won 6, 7 if you count the LSU. Urban Meyer won 3. Pete won 2. Kirby won 2. And on the Bobby Bowden won 2, and on the list we go here, so again, it's you want to, the goal here every year, coach, is you want to be in contention for a national championship. What made the Patriots a dynasty? Of course, it was the 6 Super Bowls, but as much as it was the 6 Super Bowls, it was the years they didn't win it, when it was like AFC championship game every year, right? Like that's kind of what made them the dynasty. And so the question here is, how does USC get back to top 4, top 6 every year? And then, injuries got to fall a certain way. The bracket has to fall a certain way. You got to get a bounce here and there. And then you can win a national championship. But you have to sort of get back to a place where, can this team be a perennial top 5 team? And I think that's what you're saying, which I completely agree with. But, Coach, let's be honest here. I mean, this team got shut out of the playoff when it was 4. Yeah. Okay, now it's 12. Okay, so it's a different story. Now the goals every year are not just to make the playoff, but win a game. Win one playoff game, I think now becomes kind of that goal of consistency year over year. And once players see that this is sort of a consistent program, and then with all of the additional resources that USC brings to the table, then it starts becoming this domino effect where you start getting the great recruiting. So hopefully this year kind of lays that framework. We thought it was going to be 22 that sort of laid that framework in year 1. The reality was it was a bunch of smoke and mirrors. It was a defense that had as many holes as Swiss cheese, just like the 23 defense. The only difference was they were so opportunistic. If you recall, it was 4 or 5 turnovers a game. That Oregon State win was because of turnovers. That UCLA win was because of turnovers. There was other games that they were able to win because of turnovers. And so it got all the way to 11-1. But then, it was a regression back to the mean statistically. And then last year was kind of more of a version of what that roster actually was. So the goal here is not to say, how do we get better from 8-5? And then this now becomes the barometer to then get into that elite status.
Well, I think we have to take one step at a time. We have to become the Oregons and the Penn States first. And just hear me out. The reason why I say that is because now when you really think of it, all right, I'm a 12-win team. I'm going to go to USC, right? And not now. Not now. I get not now. I understand what it is. But when you really think about it, like, well, we're 12, we're 1 player away. We're 1 player away from being a national champion. You start getting that recruit talk. Hey, Jamal, you're our guy. The reason why we didn't get there, because we were short 1 player, and you're that player. You come to USC, we're a national champion. And then you start thinking like, oh, all they need is me. You know what I mean? Now it becomes, hey, Jamal, we're that 1 player away. You're that guy. Here's $1.5 million. Well, Oregon just offered me 2. Hold on, give me a second. Here's $3 million. You know what I mean? And maybe we could talk about a little bit more. Plus, you get a great degree. You get a great job downtown LA. I give you all the connections, right? I'm just going to talk that stuff. I'm not going to talk the other stuff because you always counted out when the Dodger games and everything. They don't really get to do that, and you shot that argument down. Or I'll give you this. You get a great degree. I can connect you with somebody. If the NFL doesn't work out, maybe you could get in broadcasting. We'll put you in Annenberg School of Communication. Maybe you could become a broadcaster, a journalist, or something like that. Or you get in finance in the building downtown. Maybe you could do something like that. You could do all that, but you have to come to USC. You have to be our guy. You're that one guy away. That starts to change a little bit. But if we're not there first, right, we can't do it with 9. 9's not enough. 9, it turns into, we need 4 guys, so I got to go find 4 guys like we are doing right now. But if we're 10, 12, and we're falling short, now all of a sudden, like, we're just one guy away. We just need that one guy, and it's much more easier to get that one guy, and you have people who want to start coming and being that one guy, and then the school starts to recruit itself, and now all of a sudden you're in Al Davis mode. Just win, baby. All you got to do is just win, and everything takes care of itself. Right? When I was getting recruited,
here's the question, right? And I think our friend Joe Boyd, I think, has said it really well here in his most recent post. And Joe, thanks so much for supporting the show.
Which one? The last one?
The last one, yeah. Joe's had some really good stuff, but you really appreciate it. I mean, I think again, I mean, this is sort of the new world, right, of college football with NIL, and it's part of this equation is money, like it or not. This is, and we've talked about this a bunch, Coach. We won't repeat ourselves over the last several weeks and months, but this is an uncapped sport. This is now Major League Baseball. And so there's only so much you can sell the school and, the alumni and the history that we talked about, where, history now is a relative term. It's 3 or 4 years of history. If it goes back more than 3 or 4 years, it's almost like it didn't happen. You have to have the money. Oregon's got the Nike money. The SEC cares so desperately about this that they'll do anything. They'll give, parts of their paycheck for NIL. Is there that same level of desperation at USC? It's a question of whether it happens, because I'll be honest with you, Fred, if structurally there's a divide, and I believe there is, I still don't think USC's NIL is where it needs to be. I still don't think it's national championship caliber. I still don't think we have enough big money donors that care about football anymore. I think there's some structural challenges here significantly to get USC to where it needs to go from a resources standpoint. The other flip of the equation is you don't want this to turn back into the 90s. Okay. Yep. In the 90s, USC wasn't even the best football team in LA. Okay.
You don't want the Hackett's.
And so, and here's where you have to sort of get that back, because my concern, Coach, is we've just burned through so many coaches as well. Kiff, Sark, Orgeron. Who's a USC guy anymore? I mean, the big concern that I have is it's the same 5 guys that are at every event. It's Matt, it's Landale, it's Frosty, it's Keyshawn, it's Mark Sanchez. It's the same 5 guys.
Marcus Allen's at a lot too.
Marcus Allen, yeah, but now Marcus Allen's getting up there, Coach. I mean, he's got the ARP card now, I mean, but it's the same 5-6 guys at every event. Whether it's a big basketball game, a big women's game, a big football game, a big recruiting event. Obviously, there was the big House of Victory dinner where they pulled in so many additional people. But by and large, the same 5-6 people. That's a concern. When those are the only sort of key folks that are caring about the program, that's a barometer. That's a data point that there isn't as much engagement. The guys what happened to the 2010s? It's almost like we blinked and the 2010s went away. Every conversation we have, what's your favorite team? 04. When was the last great team USC had? 08. Who are all these guys? Landale, Matt, or Sanchez. These are all mid-2000s guys. We cannot live off the past anymore. This team has lived off the past for 15 years. They thought Riley was the answer. It's 2 years in, so the jury's still out. He has an opportunity to change this. But this is urgency, okay? This is urgency. The sky is not falling. But it has to be between this year and next year that there is a path to success from kind of an elite perspective. And if it's not, I'll be honest with you, it's looking like the 90s again.
We don't want the Hackett's. Don't put that. Knock on wood. You have a beautiful wood backing right there. Go ahead and knock on. We don't want the Hackett's. I will say this, and I'm being really honest with you, and I think this is what affects relationships with USC. And one of my buddies got married 2 years ago. It was a bunch of us down in Texas for his wedding, like from those teams, the 06 to 08 teams or whatever. And my brother went to Oregon, and they celebrated the Pac. They were the Pac-10 champions in the Rose Bowl game, the Ohio State team. And I was like, "You guys are celebrating losing the Rose Bowl? Like that's nothing." And then he was like, he made the very valid point. He was like, "How many Rose Bowl reunions have you guys had?"
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like, the school has forgotten us. And so to answer your question, the school itself has forgotten us. And you always get these things saying, oh, you get these coaches coming. I want to bring the history back from SC. I want to bring the history guys back from SC. But they don't do it. You know what I mean? Like it's so simple. If you let us run out the tunnel, well, this is the 2006 Rose Bowl team, and have a reunion like every other school does, like that matters, right? And you get those guys around more. And I can't cut a check for $1 million, but I might be able to give a little bit. Like, all right, we need to really get this thing together. But I think that is the disconnect. And I've talked about disconnects before with USC, and it's and you understand, and alumni understand the disconnect. I think that matters. There is a small disconnect. But in order to get this back, though, like that's a start right there. And then just get into 10 and 12 games, that's a start right there. If you're trying to bring the Hackett years back, we'll never recover from the Hackett years, because I firmly believe, I don't think we recover from probation. And I think SMU got the first one, we got the second one. It took SMU almost 30 years.
I think it's an excuse. I'll be honest with you. I
hear you, but I just
but I've seen this on Twitter too. It's like, oh, we had sanctions in 2011 and 2012, and that's what cost us everything. And look at us now. BS. I'm calling BS right here and now, and here's why. I'm going to give you the example you gave earlier. Who was on sanctions, Coach, in the early 90s, early to Miami, right? They won in 91, and then 93, 94, 95, 96, they were on sanctions. By 99, they were back to being elite, okay? So this idea that, the sanctions has got, look, the sanctions now was 2011, okay, 2012, 2010. We're in 2024, for God's sakes. I mean, this is coming up on 15 years now. We can't use that as an excuse. That happened. It's done. Let's move on. If this team is good enough to be able to get Caleb Williams to flip from OU to USC, this team is good enough to go get any player. So we cannot have this selective amnesia when it is appropriate, when it benefits our argument. The reality is there's only one metric in my mind that I see if USC is back. And I've said it, and I'll say it again. And then, Coach, we can close with your final thoughts. It's the Trojan Wall of Southern California. The moment I see the Trojan Wall of Southern California coming back, where every top recruit either from Southern California, goes to USC, or is not going to USC because it was sort of a USC decision, or, very few of them slip through the crack, that's when I know that this team is headed back towards the promised land. And then they sprinkle and pepper the rest of the recruiting class with geographic diversity. The moment you leave California bare and open, look, there's only 3 or 4 fertile recruiting grounds in the whole country. It's California, it's Texas, it's Florida, it's Georgia. You have one. It's your backyard, and you're going other places. It's ridiculous. You have to sort of be able to recruit in Southern California and then build off of that. The fact, unless and until the SoCal kids don't think of USC as the top program, as the absolute dream school, this is not going to change. And how do they think of it? It's 2 ways. It's performance and it's money. And I agree with some of the viewers. I believe it in the same way. I don't think NIL is sustainable. But the question then becomes, at the point that it doesn't become sustainable, let's say that's 2 years from now. Let's say that's 4 years from now. Let's say that's 5 years from now. Can USC afford 4 or 5 more mediocre seasons? And so then by the time it's no longer a factor, does it even matter anymore, because you've been mediocre for 20 years at that point, right? So that's the chicken and the egg. That's where it becomes challenging. The Trojan Wall to me is the only metric, Coach. Unless and until I see that, we have work to do.
Yeah, and I think it's getting better, but I think a lot of repair that needs to be done from the Helton years, because that's when we lost a lot of California recruits. You know what I mean? There was a time where every kid from California wanted to go to USC. Even in the 90s, every kid from California still wanted to go to USC. And, you know, it's funny because I happened to just be scanning through the radio, and Petro Papadakis was on there, and he said he was the captain of the worst team in USC history. And that's not a title you want to have.
Right.
But you know what I mean? But it's just that is a thing. I think it's a relationship that needs to be repaired, right? But I also think that we need to become back to a great football program in order for us to get and I think if we become a great football program, everything else falls in line. I think winning fixes everything. I think winning fixes the money. I think winning fixes the NIL, and I think winning fixes people wanting to come to the school. So if we get back to that, the wall around California will be a lot easier to build.
Absolutely.
Because we are winning. We have to go at least 2 to 3 years.
I mean, is it winning gets the nil, or the nil gets the winning? You know, it's probably you got to do a little bit of both at the same time, and then they reinforce each other, and then that's how you elevate. The perfect example here, Coach, I'll give you the different sport. Look, USC football should be everybody's dream school in Southern California, the way UCLA basketball should be the dream school for every basketball player in Southern California. Look at UCLA basketball's NIL over this last summer. I mean, it's gone bonkers. They've gotten every player they've wanted now this summer. All the guys came together. All their NBA guys came together and put a collective together, right? I mean, and in the end, it took that for their recruiting to turn around. That's what is going to be needed here. It's going to be either those mega donors, where are the Hughes, where are the Galens, where is that generation of folks, or it's going to have to be the guys that made it in the NFL say, I'm going to give $1 million a year. You give $1 million a year. We start getting 20, 25 guys giving $1 million a year. Now you're starting to get to a place where you are top of the line in terms of NIL. But that's what it's going to take, Coach.
No, definitely. And it's going to take a lot. But there's still no need to panic, Jamal. We're okay. We'll get there.
No need to panic. Work to be done. Done.
I will tell you this. Check this out. A long neck ice cold beer never broke my heart. So just go get you. In your case, go get your root beer, and I'll go get me a cold beer. It won't break my heart. So there you go. Just in case, that's a Luke Combs reference. Just in case you're curious.
Yes, I am aware, Coach. All right, I'm not raised under a rock.
Definitely. Hey, but Jamal, it's been fun. We got a good time in. We got good numbers in. Fans, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for watching.
Absolutely. What wonderful fans we have. And please continue to support the show. Thank you for taking time out of your evenings to listen to us. And please leave more comments and engagement, and agree, disagree, love us, hate us. You know, that's what this is all about, is to sort of share in the conversation. So we're always very appreciative of all of you.
I have one more question for you before we go, and it's scientific.
Okay.
What time has the sun been going down up there in Seattle?
Oh man, I'll tell you, scientifically, it's about 9 p.m. It's kind of wild.
Crazy. It's
crazy. About 9 p.m., 9:05 p.m. It's crazy. Yesterday we sort of touched down, I think at like 8:35, 8:40. It was still daylight out. It was wild. I was like, what time is it? You know, it's crazy.
Imagine being in Vancouver or more northern than Vancouver.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. So
Absolutely.
That's good. At least you can take a walk and still feel safe because the sun is out until 9 o'clock. Definitely.
Okay,
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody for watching. I appreciate all our subscribers. You guys keep watching. Jamal, another good one in the book. It was fun. You guys know how it goes. We'll check you guys on Thursday. Will you be there Thursday, or are you still working, Jamal?
I'm gonna be there Thursday.
We got the bearded bandits back. Ryan won't be yogging. Jamal will be back in the lounge. Will you be back in the lounge?
Back in the lounge.
We're back in the lounge. We'll probably cover more recruiting part 10. So stay here. Hey, we appreciate you guys. You guys know how it goes. Live free. Fight on.